Welcome to Real Health with me, Karl Henry. The Irish language is going through a renaissance at the moment, and someone who's at the very forefront of that movement is founder of Irish with Mollie, Mollie Guidera, and she joins me in studio now. Mollie, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Karl.
You did get your name right, didn't I?
You did, perfect.
The pressure was on.
Yeah.
I'm okay. So I followed you on Instagram for a while. I've been fascinated by the growth of both your Instagram account and also the fact that there does seem to be a renaissance of the Irish language and of it coming back. So when we're thinking about guests for the podcast, I said, here's a really interesting guest. Let's get to know her and find out what she does and just chat about Irish as a language coming back in. So I suppose to start with, tell our listeners what you do, because they won't, in case they haven't heard of you.
Yeah, so I teach the Irish language online, mostly online. Sometimes I do in-person events, but I have thousands of students all around the world. I deliver courses, I create accessible, meaningful, relevant, engaging kind of materials that can really demystify the language. So most people in Ireland, as you know, learn Irish from the age of 4 to 18. And even if you get an A in the Leaving Cert in your final exams, you might never truly connect with the language and understand the etymology, the roots, the storytelling and the wisdom in the language, because it feels like it's been a subject to us rather than a living language.
Yeah, which it has. Yeah.
And it has.
Yeah.
So what I love is applying what I've learned from English teaching. I was an English teacher for many years.
Okay.
And trying to create materials that are really user-friendly, really fun, accessible, and really bring the language alive and make it maybe more relevant for people to use in their everyday life.
Okay, and it's not just people in Ireland who are doing your courses. We were chatting before we came on air. Tell us of the spread, the global spread.
Yes, so there are people in North America, Canada, so maybe 30% of my students and followers would be from there. Maybe 10% or 20% from the UK. So many people with, Irish parents or grandparents growing up in the UK. And then maybe 30% in Ireland and the rest scattered around the world, all over the place.
And you've influencer status, as I would say. You've over 160,000 on Instagram. Huge numbers. And has that grown over a long period of time or a short period of time?
About 2 years. So it, yourself, it kind of comes and goes. There's things going viral and it's really mad, because I think I'm noticing a lot more Irish kind of in the realm of posters and branding and marketing and on TV and radio and even on public transport and everything. And that's so great to see. And I think it's kind of seeping into the Irish psyche. People are becoming more comfortable with it and maybe more confident. And it's overall an exercise in reducing shame, I think. The more I look into it, there's a lot of this colonized mindset. Why do we see the language as backwards or boring? In actual fact, it's such a straightforward, satisfying, consistent, patterned language that's such a joy. So, yourself with motivation and mindset, I always say to people, it's harder to accept that you can learn Irish than actually learn Irish. The first hurdle is just saying, I can do it, Because
we all think that it is horrible is the wrong word. Okay, you're going to shoot me for that. But, when you think back to the Irish in school, it was the one class you dreaded. You just didn't, and I love languages and I love the spoken word, but you had a fear of it because of how it was taught. And so that what you're saying is that as adults, that turns us off the idea of even considering trying to learn it.
Yeah, and I was kicked out of Irish college age 13 for speaking English.
Oh my God.
And I think it is just so punitive and kind of not at all going towards instilling this love or pride or pleasure in speaking and learning about the language. So, I have students on my courses who are doing the Leaving Cert or other exams to become a teacher, and they say, I can't wait to finish this up so I can get back to your course. Because what they're learning is just memorizing stuff they're not really going to use. So it is fascinating, the difference. People think Irish is boring or sounds horrible, like you said. And realistically, there's only 11 irregular verbs. English has 220.
Okay.
The pronunciation, orthography is very shallow in Irish. So children who learn Irish as their first language or another Celtic language like Welsh, they learn to read much faster.
Oh, yeah.
And they find it much easier because, for example, the letter C has one sound, k, like a Coca-Cola,
yeah.
K. But in English, it has about 7 sounds. English is very inconsistent. So I think coming from an English language mindset, people find Irish bamboozling. But actually, when you break it down, it's much easier. It's all for the ease and flow of the language. You know, the shevu, the uru, all this mutation in the language, it makes sense.
I mean, you good at Irish in school?
I was okay. I mean, I think I struggled going into secondary school when it became associated with stress and exams. And I had a teacher who said, we were like, I wonder why he teaches Irish. Like, he clearly has no passion, you know? And he said, June, July and August, girls. But then I think for the Leaving Cert, because it is an exam subject, you're kind of just driven to do the best you can.
Yeah.
You know, people in Ireland are choosing maths or Irish to kind of focus on sometimes because it's a bit of a points race. So I chose Irish and I did well, but I didn't really understand it properly. You know, and I think that's very common. People can have a full-blown conversation in Irish and not truly understand what they're saying. And then if you go off script, like I've prepared people for the Leaving Cert oral exam, and then if you say something like, oh, August, you know, and how did you make the pizza? If they said, I ate pizza, and they're like, stunned.
I remember that. I remember that all of those, yeah, the presets. You had it all in your head about whatever, and even the examiner would ask you, and you all knew what was going on, but yeah, it was all preset laid out. How did you get from that point? And so how did you get from not really having a graph for it in school to really delving into it? And you're obviously into, even from listening to you talk, you're into language and to words.
I am. So I did the CELTA, which is a Cambridge qualification in teaching English. And I studied English at Trinity, and I love languages, always have. I started travelling, and I basically became a teacher in order to travel. So I was travelling around the world, and I just completely fell in love with teaching. I love explaining things. I love making it, you know, illuminating it and making it really shine for students. Like, the best bit of my job is people saying, light bulb moment. Like, that just makes sense. You know, how have I never... That just shines, you know, and they remember it. And making like tunes and rhymes and things to make it easier. But I was teaching English for years, travelling around the world. I sailed around the world on the Peace Boat.
Yeah.
And then...
Tell us about that.
Yeah, it was a fascinating journey. It's a UN-sponsored NGO, which fosters peace studies and conflict resolution. And I thought it was going to be like a university at sea, you know, young people. But realistically, it was about 900 elderly Japanese people, myself, some teachers, some translators. And it was a brilliant experience. We sailed around the Southern Hemisphere, stopping in around 30 countries. And as soon as they found out I was Irish, they wanted to do all the Gaeilge dances. We did on Rinkamore, the Siege of Venice. And I organised the St. Patrick's Day festival. And being away from Ireland, I really felt this urge to reconnect and this newfound graw for the language. You know, my grandmother was a Gaeilge. She cycled around Ireland working for An Óige, and it's a hosteling organisation. And I used to call her, and she was in a nursing home, and her hearing was really bad. But when I switched to Irish, she could hear me perfectly. And she was, you know, as fluent as ever, which was really, I think, the bones of it. Like, I just felt so connected to home. And I was getting a bit tired of teaching English. I thought, you know, it's good, but I'm teaching the same things every day. And I thought, actually, I was teaching online one-to-ones, and the platform asked me if I could teach Irish. And I thought, wow, you know, say yes and learn how to do it.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So I went for it, and I realised there's a huge demand worldwide. People in Kentucky talking Irish to their horses, you know, in remote parts of the world, all over the place, every time zone. And they were emotional. They were tearful about learning Irish. And some of them were quite fluent. And they'd have a lesson with me and say, you're the first person I've ever spoken Irish to.
Go away.
And I'd be like, this is mad, you know. And then the pandemic hit, and it became so busy. My schedule was just packed. You know, if I opened my schedule 20 hours a day, I'd be full 20 hours a day. And I think people really wanted, it was definitely a kind of, you know, passion people had, something they want to do before they die. And a lot of people use words like regret, you know, oh, it's my biggest regret that I never learned Irish. I wish I could speak fluent Irish. And I say to them, you're still alive. Like, you're telling me your wishes. Go for it. Best time ever was 40 years ago, but second best time is today. And so I was really busy. I was creating more materials, and I just thought, I want to share this with more people. I really felt there's this kind of burgeoning, blossoming community around the world. And Irish is listed as definitely endangered on the UNESCO Atlas of World Languages. So why not? You know, we need to rethink and revitalize our language. So I created Irish with Mollie, and
Wow.
yeah.
And the emotional connection's important for you, isn't it? It's not just let's go learn a language, or even the language itself and the thought of it. Mm-hmm. It's not just a language, really. And just from chatting to you so far, there's more to it.
Definitely. I think, you know, the Irish language is truly fitcha fuacha, like interwoven with our culture. All languages are. And there's a lot of studies which show that the benefits of learning any language, but especially your ancestral tongue, brings these feelings of belonging, connectedness, comfort, freedom. And I think in a world which is so kind of in discord at the moment, and people are struggling with so many different issues, you know, my students tell me that learning Irish is deeply healing. It's a great way to feel aligned, connected. It reduces anxiety, it delays and reduces Alzheimer's and dementia. It increases your self-confidence, concentration, memory. So all the data is there, you know. It is a very emotional journey for people, I think, because even the way we speak in Ireland, you know, even Hiberno English, is directly translated from Irish. And when you think of Irish people being forced to speak a new language and even beaten for speaking their native tongue, of course, they were never taught English in a loving, kind way. Mm-hmm. They just spoke what they knew. And I think that's why we have such a literary tradition. You know, Ireland has the oldest literature in Western Europe. And you hear the poetry come out, even when people are speaking English, like feelings are on us. You know, the structure of the language, the syntax, even saying like, I'm after seeing Karl, or he's great, so he is. Like these little tags
isms.
And lines, the isms, yeah, all come from our native language.
Wow. And what do people struggle with most then when they start? So people listening and think, okay, I'm turned on to the idea of learning Irish. Great.
Yeah.
What are the biggest? Is it the historic stuff? Do you have to undo that first in terms of how they've been thought through school? Like, PEG is my recollection of kind of Irish, is all I can remember. But is it that, and then that there's a better way, that there's a better way to learn?
I think so. I think it's that people have memorized things and they have structures in their head. So they think, oh, sha means yes, or ta means yes. And
it does, though, doesn't it?
It's not true, no. So there is no word.
Okay.
So there is no word for yes or no in Irish. And we answer with the verb. So that's why you hear Irish people say things like, are you Mollie? I am. Do you have a brother? I do. And we just answer with the verb. And this helps us process language on a much deeper level because we have to actually listen to what the person is saying. So basically, yeah, if the question is on will, meaning is, am, are, the answer will be ta, is, am, are, or nil, isn't, amn't, aren't. And sha is the copula, meaning it is so. So it's not applicable to all positive circumstances.
So what's yes in Irish?
There is no yes.
At all?
If I said, like, do you swim? You'd say, like, snovum, I swim.
Oh, of course, yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know? So I think some people might use sha, but technically it is applicable only to the copula when you're classifying what a thing is.
Every day's a school day, lads. Okay.
Yeah, shinny.
Wow.
So that's one struggle people have.
Okay.
And I think another one is these self-limiting beliefs. People really say, oh, I'm too old, I'm too thick, I was never good at that at school. Maybe they had a teacher who said, you're the slowest ship in the convoy. Maths teacher told me that once. And we really take it in, you know, and I think undoing that and trying to just believe is the main thing. I think people ask me all the time, how long till I get to fluency? I really want to be fluent. So how long does that take? And if I do your course, blah, blah, blah. And I say, that's a myth. You know, fluency is a myth. It doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't even happen to everyone at the same time. I have a degree in English. English is my first language. But do I know every word in English? No. Am I always finding new words? Like, I love reading, I love writing. But I'm well aware that I've loads more to learn. And I think if you make your goals more tangible, if you say, okay, I'm starting to learn Irish. I want to learn the colours. Well, in like 3 days or even 1 day or 30 minutes, you could be like, brilliant. I feel success and I feel motivation, and that's going to propel me forwards and give me some momentum. Whereas if you say, I want to be fluent, you'll never feel truly fluent because it might take you 50 years.
It's an open-ending goal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you still realise, well, I've loads more to learn, like everyone everywhere. But I think fluency is not the key. It's community and confidence. And people don't need to speak perfectly. You know this old adage, is fiar Gaeilge vriste ná beirle cliste. Broken Irish is better than clever English. And that's great. You know, I think people should throw in the cúpla focal whenever they can, because it's a bit like vulnerability. If you open up to someone, chances are they'll feel invited to open up back to you. Mm-hmm. So if you're using a cúpla focal like slán, bye, whenever you can.
I've got about 10 words.
Yeah.
And then I meet people every now and then. Like, oh, you're great with your Irish. You're fluent. Like, not a hope. No.
It.
But they think you are because you put like the odd word in. Yeah.
Who's to know?
Fake it till you make it. That's Sabina Brennan that was chatting about earlier. What was I going to ask you next was around, okay, the language as a whole then. There is a resurgence in it though, isn't it? There is a graw, for want of a better word, around the Irish language. Why? Why do you think that is?
I think it's that Ireland as a republic is relatively young. And when I was growing up in the 90s, you know, we were watching Home and Away and The Simpsons and eating Pop-Tarts, and everything was like, you know, Americanized. Yeah. And that was cool. And the old diddly eye trad session was not cool. Mm-hmm. And I think with the hipster movement, like going back to old crafts, what do they call it? Like cottagecore and things like that. People are interested in creating authentic community, doing things with their hands. I think we're so used to digital life now that we're craving a more natural way of being. And the most natural way of thinking and, you know, thinking about our human tenderness and humour is through the Irish language. And I think people are becoming more aware of Ireland's role in the world, you know, with recent events, how Ireland stands for what is right, or we try to. And we're a small country who's been through so much. And if you think the language is the ultimate survivor, like it's been at risk since the Norman invasion in 12th century. And it's gone through, you know, hundreds of years of oppression, the penal laws, the statutes of Kilkenny, urbanisation, modernisation, a dry and irrelevant curriculum. And it's time to kind of own it and enjoy it. You know, it's not what people think. Even the simplest things like Diaghwech, hello, it's God to you, or God for you, or thank you, Gurav Mahagat, really means may you have goodness. And imagine in the past people would say achara, dear friend. Mm-hmm. Imagine if we all greeted each other with achara. Like instantly, that's psycholinguistics. You know, that's believing the thoughts and the energetic field of the words in your mind. And you might have a more, I don't know, peaceful relationship with those around you. There's so much to be learned from the language, you know, and I'm learning more and more every day.
So you're continuing to, so you're never the expert. Well, you are the expert, but you know what I mean, in terms of you're continuing to learn.
Exactly. I think, you know, the community is the teacher, and my students come to me with all these amazing questions that some of them I've never even thought about. And it's a language, you know, with no verb to have or to know. So knowledge is at us. We don't have anything in Irish, like we don't have possessions. They're just at us. And feelings are on us. So the self is kind of in the world. It gives you a new perspective, a new lens on reality. And things are before us, behind us, within us. And I think it's a very beautiful and poignant way to think of your reality and your mission in the world.
It's authentic.
Very.
Yeah. Grounding.
Yeah, absolutely.
De-stressing.
It really is. I have a lot of students who say it's very soothing to think. I mean, it is proven that if you're thinking in another language, it kind of redirects your brain and, you know, you're shifting your awareness, concentrating on something else. So it's great for anxiety. But also I think, yeah, to think how we have two ways to be in Irish. We have tá mé, I am, and bíam, I do be. And you see this having migrated to other places. There's a great link between Ireland and Jamaica with things they say there that apparently came from indentured servants being shipped over to Jamaica. So there's so much history to how the language has spread, you know, and how we're still using it all over the world. But this feeling that táme is temporary. And we think of sadness being on us, or feelings coming over us, or coming safe from illness. It's very visual and very real for people. And I mention it to some international friends, and one of them was going through a really difficult time. She lost her partner, and she said, I thought about that every day, that sadness is on you. And like a piece of music, there's ups and downs. It doesn't just stay down, as you might believe when you're in that space. But the language, thinking in the language and speaking the language, reminds you life is ebbing and flowing all the time. Things will get better.
And with your courses, do you teach that as part of the courses in terms of it's not just the words?
Yeah.
It's the history of the words.
Yeah, and I think that's what really works. You know, little stories about the words, where they came from, how they're used, culture of the language, mythology. I like teaching proverbs. There's songs, and there's going to be dances soon too. I'm a dance teacher as well.
Oh, are you? God, okay.
Zumba teacher.
Are you?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, okay.
And Zumba works great for Irish.
I was going to ask you, if you had outside of like language and history, and the spoken word is absolutely your thing. And okay, wow, okay.
But definitely, I think that's what really works, that people want to connect with the language and not just learn a list of words, you know, but if you learn them in a story or in a poem or in a song.
How my son's in the Gaeilge school, so absolutely. So they learn through songs and
brilliant,
all
yeah.
He absolutely comes home singing all the stuff with the consonants, and it's great. It's brilliant. It's brilliant, and you learn and they learn so much easier through song.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree, and I think that's wonderful. It's brilliant to hear that he's in a Gaeilge school. I think, you know, a lot of people say to me, "Oh, I have dyslexia, so I never got to learn," or "I moved to Ireland after the age of 7," and I think that's so ridiculous. You know, taking a language away from someone because why? They're not going to get an A in an exam, but they might. It's weird. You know, I think it is a mindset where we need to embrace the language and associate it with pride and pleasure rather than exams and stress. And I say to people sometimes, "Oh, and, you know, have you got any Irish?" And they say, "No, I haven't a word of Irish." That's an Irish structure. You know, we say, "I have a language." Tá Gaeilge agam.
But I haven't.
But in other English dialects, you wouldn't say, "I have Spanish, I have French, I have Irish." And they associate it with school. They say, "No, because, you know, no need." But if you look at a language in terms of utility, you're not connecting it with love and ancestry, heritage, identity, connection.
I was wondering where this chat was going to go. I wasn't really quite sure. Yeah. Even though I pitched it to JJ, I said, "We should have this lady on. She's really interesting, I think." It's been fascinating. It's been absolutely fascinating. We could chat for hours. If people want to do your courses, or if they want to follow you on Instagram, where do they follow you?
So you can find me on Instagram or TikTok at Irish with Mollie.
How big's your TikTok following? Go on.
Oh, TikTok's not that big.
Okay.
I think 17,000.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Instagram's bigger.
Yeah.
And then my website is irishwithmollie.com. And I have a free course, so just get in touch, irishwithmollie@gmail.com. And the free course is a mini course, 4 lessons to get you into it. And there's a discount then on my courses. I have 3 courses, one for beginners, one for intermediate learners, and one called Daily Conversations. So really living the language, like making a toast at a wedding, you know, filling a prescription at the pharmacy, starting a session ceol at the pub, all of that crack.
Do you think in Irish?
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I speak a few different languages, so it depends.
What else do you speak? Go on.
Portuguese, some Spanish, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, it really depends. I think with languages, you can really get into an immersive groove with them. You know, if you're speaking to one person in Irish for the day, you'd start thinking in Irish.
Yeah. Fascinating. Thank you so much for coming in. It's been great to chat.
Thank you for having me.
I really hope you enjoyed today's episode of Real Health. As ever, you know where we are at Karl Henry PT on Instagram, on the Irish Independent website. And as ever, we will see you next week for more Real Health. Slán go fóill.